Greetings, fellow moviegoers, and welcome to Movie Central, the place to talk about movies, TV shows based on movies, toys based on movies, games based on movies, and rides based on movies. I'm your host, Mr. CCS, and this is my pet gorilla, George. Now, I'm going to stray away from the bigger players in this review, because today we're talking about the characters more around my age. They're the Teen Titans. Okay, let me explain. The Teen Titans made their debut all the way back in 1966. The team was composed of sidekicks of the more popular DC heroes, those being Wonder Girl, Aqualad, Speedy, Kid Flash, and Robin. It wasn't a very big success, as the other option for teen superheroes was a lot more successful. It was Spider-Man! However, by the time the 1980s rolled around, Marv Wolfman and George Perez reinvented the Teen Titans from the ground up and created a very good run for them in the form of New Teen Titans, which introduced the more popular lineup featuring three original Titans, Robin, Kid Flash, and Wonder Girl, but new Titans, Raven, Beast Boy, Starfire, and Cyborg were added to the roster as well. These four, along with Robin, were the leads of the very popular 2003 animated show on Cartoon Network, which sadly got cancelled after its fifth season, though some sources claim it to be a great finale that wraps everything up. From there, what followed were subsequent portrayals that were either received really well or really poorly. Young Justice has its fans, Teen Titans Go is a disgrace, and Titans is a show that I will never bother watching. Nope, you can't make me. Whether or not James Gunn will do a Titans movie is another story, but for the time being, the Titans movie on the big screen that we have is really bad. But what about the DC animated films that go direct to video? Have they had their shot with the Titans? Well, yes. Trouble in Tokyo kinda counts, but what I'm going to talk to you about today is the first animated film based on the Titans that is also labeled as a Justice League movie that came out in 2016, which just so happens to adapt an older comic and not the New 52 Titans. Ha! In all seriousness, I have no real segue into this review. This is Justice League versus Teen Titans. Robin, voiced again by Stuart Allen, is sent to work with the Teen Titans, who include Starfire, voiced by Kerry Walgren, Raven, voiced by Teza Farmiga, Beast Boy, voiced by Brandon Suhu, and Blue Beetle, voiced by Jake T. Austin, after his volatility nearly botches a Justice League mission, which wasn't exactly his fault. The young team must really step up to face Trigon, voiced by John Bernthal, after he possesses the Justice League and threatens to conquer the world. Now, as far as the first chapter in the Titans story goes, this isn't a bad start. It's kinda cool in my opinion, seeing a younger and less experienced Robin working with the team in stark contrast to the older and more experienced leader in Nightwing. Throwing in Trigon is a little too much, though, and just kind of adds a lot of extra stakes that a smaller scale story doesn't really need. If it was me, I'd make a trilogy and save Trigon for the third film, with the Titans teaming up with the Doom Patrol and taking out the Brotherhood of Evil, or taking out the Amazo Android, or Blackfire. I don't know, literally anyone else. That's kind of a nitpick, because I personally consider Trigon to be the Titans' most powerful and intimidating villain, and you'll see how much of a powerhouse he really is when I talk about Apocalypse War. So the story isn't perfect, but I can get by its simplicity, just because I want to see how the team dynamic works and how they deal with this threat. Okay, so by far my favorite characters in this movie are Damian Wayne and Raven. Damian completes his arc of deciding who he wants to be, and it works out pretty well because he grows a ton as a character, and he turns into a very different version of himself at the end, which leads perfectly into his final arc of the saga. But I'll get there when I get there. Raven, on the other hand, was interesting to see grow as a character. She's always been my favorite of the Titans, and that is no different here. She cares about her friends and even sacrifices herself to keep them safe from Trigon. Her backstory was also really messed up and downright horrifying. This is how Raven should be portrayed in live action, with aspects of her 2003 version as well. As far as the other Titans go, Starfire was the very sympathetic mother figure, which was great to see, But that's about where my praise ends. I would have preferred if Dick was in this movie more, so that these two could work off of each other. After all, they are a couple in this universe, and they should have great chemistry as the two team leaders, but I digress. She was a pretty cool character all the same. Then there's Blue Beetle. And while I will forever think that the best version of Jaime Reyes is in Batman the Brave and the Bold, this version is still pretty cool to watch. The Scarab being unstable was a cool aspect of the character that added a ton of depth to him. I've always loved Jaime's character, and I can't wait to see how this live-action movie debut turns out later this summer. And then we have Beast Boy. And let me tell you, as much as I love the character in other pieces of media, I absolutely hated him here. He was annoying, the butt of every single joke, and he was a complete idiot. Garfield's character in the comics and other media portray him as laid back, chill, and unfocused. He was never a downright idiot. This is kind of a betrayal to his character, and I hated the movie whenever he was in it. But aside from BB, the Titans are a pretty cool bunch to hang around. As far as the Justice League goes, despite being one of the teams in the title, they're not in it much. They're in a total of like 5 or 6 scenes or something, which makes the title frighteningly misleading, but that's not really too much of a problem because this movie is so freaking awesome despite the misleading title and my love for the comic. I digress. Watching the Justice League being possessed by Trigon and having Batman out of commission was a great way for the Titans to adapt to their situation and beat the villain. Speaking of villains, this movie has a cameo from Lex Luthor in the Legion of Doom. That is only here in the beginning. 'Tis all. The actual main villain is Trigon, and I find him quite intimidating and scary in this film. He's not as scary as the 2003 Trigon by a long shot, but he's still a physical and mental prowess and presence that does feed at you throughout the course of the film. I really liked his inclusion and how brutal he was in forms of torturing the League, and especially Raven. Yes, I would prefer him to be the last villain they face, but that doesn't matter too much to me because they used him pretty well in my opinion. So, yeah, the characters in this movie are pretty solid, and the ones that I would love to watch more of, for the most part. I like the style of animation, so there you go. Need I say more? That's about it. And in regards to violence and action, the League becoming gross-looking demons, okay, not that gross, was pretty grim. Damien's wounds after battling Blue Beetle was nutsy. Cutting off the ghost of Ra's al Ghul's head was cool. Beast Boy's weird monster thing ripping apart the demon creature, whatever it was pretty gross. The action scenes weren't that special. The final battle felt kind of empty, and the sequences weren't as creative as they could be. The opening scene and the battle with the League were by far the best, because they both had a bunch of interesting aspects to them. So overall, this film isn't perfect, but I have a mighty good time watching it. If you like the Teen Titans and want to kill some time, give this one a watch. I give it a 9 out of 10. It was almost there. Yeah, this review was pretty much stalling for a larger and much bigger dumpster fire I have to rewatch and review. So tune in next week when I take a look at the 2016 Suicide Squad movie. YouTube, put your pitchforks down. With that said, my name is Mr. CTS, and this is Movie Central, and that, my friends, is a wrap. See you next week.